Hello, everybody in LinkedIn land and beyond. It's Toby here from Freeformers. And again, I am not with Emily. I have a special guest who is waiting in the green room. I think they're on stage because they just put their mug in front of the camera, but they're not. They're in the green room. We can't see them. But before we get to my good friend Rocket, because I've announced you on socials already, who is some sort of just creative genius, I got a quick shout out to Disrupt Green Bay because number one, Rocket is speaking at Disrupt Green Bay, but Mary, the fellow co-organizer of Disrupt Green Bay, has sent me a package. And so what I promised to do was open this package live on air. So when I'm going to bring Rocket on, because I have a feeling there's going to be some stuff in here he doesn't like, and I'm going to take immeasurable amount of joy of watching me unbox something in front of Rocket, to which he just kind of goes, I don't like that. So without further ado, let's welcome Rocket. Hello, my friend.
Hello. Good afternoon, UK. How are you?
I'm good. Where in the world are you today, Rocket? Because you travel a lot.
I'm in Brazil in our home, which we're closing up for a while because we're moving more permanently to Dallas-Fort Worth area back to the US, which I thought I'd never do, ever, but I am.
What is the difference between Dallas and Dallas-Fort Worth to someone here who sits in the UK going, is it not all the same?
Oh, never say that to a Fort Worthian. It's a metroplex. It's America's third largest metroplex, and you have Dallas at one end, which is a city in its own right, and Fort Worth, which is on the other side of the metroplex. It's depending on what reports you read, it's around 11 million people, so it makes it America's third largest metroplex after LA and New York. So that's the difference. Actually, the history's in Fort Worth. I know people from Dallas won't like it, but it's true. The history of the region started in Fort Worth with the cattle and the train system. Fort Worth has America's largest train depot and network still to this day. It was called Where the West Begins, Fort Worth. And so it was the last stop before you entered into the unknown if you were heading west, and it was the first stop back into the established world of the East Coast. So it's a pretty cool place. I like it a lot.
You've sold it. You've sold it. Like that's very cool. And I think just for people that not joined us before, how and why do we know each other? Because you live in Brazil / Dallas-Fort Worth. I live in Norfolk, UK. Feasibly, there's no way we should be communicating, talking, or even liking each other.
Firstly, thank you, Monica, for agreeing. It's not the same, Toby, she said. Dummy. It's funny how you Brits make fun
I'm just a silly British person who knows nothing about that big place over the water.
No, it's funny that you Brits make fun of us septics for being poor at geography, but I know my geography. How do we know each other? Well, I lived in London for altogether about 23 years. And it was during the time I was living in London. We were parked at WeWork. Is that a bad word now, or can I still say WeWork?
I think you still say it still exists. So like you got to say where you were.
Yeah, we were parked there. Back then we were really focused on more internal comms agency that I was the founder and global creative director for. And you rocked up with our good friend Mel, and you were with a British company. Don't know if we'll name it or not. And you were looking for something new and different and exciting.
I've talked about it all a lot. Let's name them.
Go ahead.
Well, it's Curry's, PC World, Carphone Warehouse, that group. Some of those brands don't exist anymore. But the UK version of Best Buy, that's how I always introduce it.
Yeah. And so you guys, you were heading up or co-heading up learning and development for the organization, and you were looking for a fresh, new, interesting, vibrant, off the radar way to succeed at that in the organization. And we delivered that solution, but typically we weren't selected because we were all the things that you said you wanted. And when it came to time to make the deal, it was like, yeah, we want to go with something more conservative. But we stayed friends.
Yeah, because you were all the things I wanted. You were not all the things the stakeholders wanted, which was vanilla,
Yeah.
no chocolate chips,
Yeah.
barely a cone, maybe just have it in a tub, unbranded. And it's like, this will create change within our organization. Num, 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 num. And lo and behold, it
Yum,
didn't.
yum, 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 yum.
Before, look, we got into the meaty element of the chat, but I haven't done the thing that I promised I would do when I brought you on, which was get this. So our dear friend Mary.
All right, so as you're opening that, give me a second to get something from the fridge in preparation, because I already know what's coming. So you go ahead and open that.
Okay, so you're gonna do that. We're just gonna look at this empty chair in Brazil whilst I empty this box. So our dear friend Mary, who is co-organizing Disrupt Green Bay with myself and Callie, has sent us this lovely package. Sent me this lovely package. And if you want to know more about Disrupt Green Bay, scan the old QR code there. Just for expediency, I've already cut this open because I was like, I don't want to have to try and use a knife on LinkedIn. I'm not sure that's probably the thing to do. So I have opened it, or my wife opened it, but I've not actually looked inside this box. So we're going to take a look what's inside this box, Rocket. So first of all, I don't think you'll find this particularly offensive. This is a card.
I find the color a little offensive.
As you would.
Yeah.
This is a very lovely card, which I'm going to keep between me and Mary. So
Wait,
I'm not going to read that out loud.
Just to explain before people watching think, why does bright yellow offend them? I love bright yellow as a color. I just don't like it what I think it's going to be associated with. But I'm ready. Go ahead.
I mean, you're gonna love this. I'm gonna show you that one last. Okay, so there's some stuff in here I'm probably gonna need to talk to Mary about in terms of the reference point, because I have no idea what a Yupa bar is.
Oh, Yupa bar! That's amazing.
What's a Yupa bar? It's milk chocolate. It's milk chocolate. I mean, it says on it it's milk chocolate, but this is like a very specific milk chocolate. Do you know what it is?
No clue.
You reacted like you knew what it was. You're like, oh, a Yupa bar. A Yupa bar. I'll Google that a little bit later. There's something wrapped up here as well.
So far, so good.
So far, you're not. Okay, so this is the same brand, and it's the same brand, but it's assorted candies, chocolate.
Okay, cool.
Candies.
I can do that.
Nice. I know what I'm doing tonight.
You're
okay with that?
So far, but how do you pronounce the name of the brand? Go ahead, give it a shot. Let me correct you.
Where it's SAYKLLYS. So
go ahead.
So is it? I'm just going to assume they forgot the E and it's Kelly's.
Say Kelly's.
That's what it says. Say Cleese.
I think so. I don't know. We'll see.
Oh, well, if there are any Wisconsin natives tuning in, because even though I am a Green Bay fan, I'm not a Wisconsin native. I'd be keen to know who these folks are, and I think it's because I trash Hershey's all the time, so I'm getting some real good quality US chocolate here, rather than Hershey's garbage. Okay, right. I think Mary. There's a pen.
Okay.
I think that might have might have been in there by accident. So there's a pen. Very nice. I'm gonna take that back. No, now we get to the stuff. Now we get to the real stuff. Ooh. For those on the podcast can't see, I have got some Green Bay Packers stickers, which are gonna get shoved all around this office space. I'm gonna stick them everywhere. And as a Dallas Cowboys,
I have a piece of cheese.
Okay, if you're going to get the cheese out, I'm going to get the best part of this parcel out, which is, look at that bad boy.
I think I just threw my mouth a little.
Wait, you know what it is. Green and yellow, green and yellow, green and yellow, green and yellow. I can't believe you're eating cheese on this live stream. This week, I have had someone on a live stream play a piano, and now I've got someone eating cheese. Both of those things I did not predict happening this week. So, you're giving me value for money right here. So, okay, we've done the unboxing. I've rubbed yellow and green merch in your face. You're eating cheese. We're all Green Bayed up.
Can I just say for my American colleagues who may be watching this, that it's okay to eat cheese on a podcast, but it's not advisable to cut cheese on a podcast.
That's a turn of phrase that I don't really understand, so I'll Google Urban Dictionary probably later to see what it means.
He knows probably.
Okay. Lovely stuff. Oh, we got. Oh, okay. Monica's got in chat with a Yopper bar. Yopper bar, solid homemade milk chocolate bars shaped like the Upper Peninsula. Bars, not bards. Okay, that makes more sense. It's not Shakespeare. Oh, I get it. So it's shaped like the Upper Peninsula. Which way is it? That way round? I mean, the chocolate bar's that way round. That's the upper part of Wisconsin, right? That's that area. Okay. Geography. I am not doing British people any favors with my real. Well, the fact that when I was speaking in Disrupt Minneapolis, I would get Minnesota and Minneapolis, like I'd use them interchangeably, which is clearly wrong because one's a state and one's a city. So anyway, we've got out the yellow and green way. There's no blue and white football team merch on show at any point. You are, however, wearing. Could you show the people at home your T-shirt for me, please?
Well, this one here.
Yeah, for those that are listening on the podcast, what does your T-shirt say for us, my friend? What does it say on it? You can't see me, and no one in the world can say you can't see me without doing the John Cena hand gesture. 2 weeks in a row now, John Cena has been mentioned on this live stream, so we're 2 for 2 on John Cena references. Real pressure on my guest next week to bring out a John Cena reference. Sorry, say again. You weren't.
I said somebody's a wrestling fan on this podcast.
Oh yeah. What is that?
Actually, a wrestler on this podcast.
Just the one. We'll make a wrestler of you yet, though, in your mid-70s or however old you are. So, again, if you're listening on the podcast, you can't see, but Rocket is clearly not in his mid-70s. He's probably early-ish 70s, at worst. So we're friends because I tried to work with you about 15 years ago and was flat out refused by my stakeholders because you were too creative and too innovative. And we're talking about creativity on this live stream as creativity, the last competitive advantage. Mm-hmm. Why is creativity the last competitive advantage?
Well, before I answer that, this is going to be probably one of the most trickiest. Can I say most trickiest? Is that I think you can. I think that's okay grammar. Trickiest podcast combos ever because I'm speaking in Green Bay next month about this topic, and here we are a month in advance. And it's like, how do I manage to avoid not replicating my 5-minute power talk over a 50-minute podcast? That's the challenge. So I want to try to bring something fresh to it. So with that in mind, ask me the question again about creativity.
I'll reframe the question. What can you tell me about creativity that you're not telling us in Green Bay on June 11th?
Why do I think it's the last competitive advantage?
Yeah.
I think creativity's been the only sustainable competitive advantage since the dawn of time. We haven't moved anything forward in any significant way or significant push without the necessity for creativity to kick in to move us farther along. So it is the last because we've tried so many other things that we would call creative maybe, but to me, it's always been the first, the middle, and the last in terms of not just for business, but in moving life along.
Mm. And I think your microphone cuts out at the beginning and the end of whatever you say. So I would just go and then talk because then it'll.
Okay.
There you go. That worked really nicely, actually. So the thing that we've talked about, because we in the 10, 15 years that we've known each other, spoken a lot about various things, but this is the one that it always comes back to, which is why I think it's so important to talk about it at Disrupt Green Bay, but also on this live stream. And maybe I skirt around it a little bit just so you're not doing the big reveal of all the talk. But in terms of the organizations you work with, or at least the organizations you see, why are they not embracing kind of creativity as their competitive advantage? Why do they kind of avoid it?
That's a great question. Gosh, you've done this before. That was really good. I think it's because they're not facing the reality of necessity. You know, groups of humans that are in a path or in a rhythm of doing anything become very used to being in that path or rhythm. And there's a comfort that is not only I didn't freeze, although I look like it. There's a comfort in keeping in that rhythm, because that's where the life is. That's where the gel is. So we keep in that rhythm. And and you get used to being in that station. So any disruption that you can see coming, you're very quick to defend your position and ground. After all, we've been so brilliant to get to this point. So why would we have to change something? They may be right. Often I think it's just fear. But that brings on to the second point related to it. Because they're not good at being honest about the necessity of moving forward, and they can often see change coming, and they can grip themselves and tucker down for it. They're not putting themselves in the best position to actually access their creativity, because creativity, when it works properly, only really comes out of necessity. Because if you're floating along in your perfect normal, on your normal float and everything's good, why would you rock the boat? Like you're thriving, or you put forward the appearance of thriving. So there's no need to get creative. Creativity comes out of necessity. So not only do you have to be, I would say, shocked, or I often say that it comes through a sudden, brutal kick in the teeth, something you weren't expecting that knocked you off, and you have to, in that moment, react. It's a little bit like aspiration. And we talk about, what are your aspirations? And if you ask most people, what are your aspirations? They'll start waxing lyrical about visions and strategies and stuff. And I can't tell you how many talks I've had with leaders, and I've asked a simple question about the difference between ambition and aspiration. I'll say, show me your ambition. Materially manifest your ambition for me right now. And they'll kind of look around like a little kid. You know how like little kids don't know the answer to the question and they get a little embarrassed. I'm talking about senior leaders, like global leaders. And I'll just get comfy, and I'll kind of settle in, and I'll wait. And I'll say, I'm here all day. It doesn't matter, because you can't materialize your ambition. So then I'd say, okay, show me your aspirations. And they kind of looking around the same way. And I say, oh, this you can show me. This you can materialize. And I'll say, I give you a hint. Aspire for me. And they're still not sure. I'll say, I'll give you another hint. There's a machine in a hospital that you put you on that helps you to do this thing. An aspirator. What does an aspirator help you do, Toby?
Breathe.
Yes.
Hey. And just call me Toby Keng MD.
It simulates an expansion to take in or increase your capacity for air. Right? That's the same thing that's required to unlock creativity. A real aspiration. And often that comes through shock, something you weren't prepared for, something you weren't expecting. Not if you're comfortable. Evolution only happens because we're forced to evolve. Otherwise, we float along the river of normal and everything's hunky-dory. So in organizations that spend so much time, energy, and effort stabilizing norm, really, I would say unlocking creativity is almost an anathema for them, because it's so out of what they think is necessary to win, until they're faced with something they didn't expect, whether it be a disease, whether it be an election. It doesn't matter. You can't write that into your 5-year plan. And so I think that's why organizations aren't really good at locating it or finding it, but they all have it resident in them, because they all hire people, and people are creative by design. It's our birthright to access creativity. But even that didn't come without a push. And that didn't come without a need to make something or to change a state of something. So there's that human element to it that I think runs through the organizational problems of accessing it also. So that's kind of my
That's what I say.
not 5
And
minute.
just as quick as that, we have the answer. But like the thing I love about you, and there's not many things I love about you, but there is a few, is this. Well, there's a lovely accent for one, which I know you don't like, but I love.
No.
And then there is this ability to take us on a journey and a story through very unexpected ways. Like you've never used the aspirator thing before when I've spoken to you, and we've spoken this about a lot. So there's like these little nuggets that you pick out from places. So regardless of how long or short something is you say, it's always like just keep talking, baby. I like this. But I have a question for you. Because we're on a
Yeah.
live stream, and if I didn't have a question for you, then we'd just be sat here in silence.
It'd be super boring.
So
Yeah.
I was speaking to someone the other day, and we talked about 5-year strategies, 3-year strategies, and you're like, well, if you had a 5-year strategy on, if you set your 5-year strategy on December 31st, 2019, in 3 months, that strategy goes out the window, and then, like you say, diseases happen, wars happen, elections happen. All of this seeks to disrupt. So that 5-year strategy that would have only just matured 5 or 6 months ago was redundant at that point. Then what we saw during the pandemic was creativity. It's like, okay, forced with all these constraints, what would I do differently? And 1,000,001 businesses started doing things differently. And it didn't take them that long to do it either, because
Nope.
there was that financial imperative for them to do it. But then you get to the new normal in inverted commas, and where you get to is that, oh cool, we can go back to doing 3-year strategies, 5-year strategies, or maybe we're a little bit revolution, we do a 1-year strategy. But even then, you're creating yourself and the whole infrastructure of work, the job roles, the way you look after people, work with people, get them to do stuff, is so fundamentally structured, or is it structured in such a way that fundamentally it's so hard to change and adapt and move? Although it isn't, because the pandemic taught us that it was. So where do you get this little bit of spice, this little bit of disruption on a day-to-day basis to keep you moving and active, I guess?
Well, that's a great question. Again, gosh, you've had two of them. Who knew? I think what my work is really centered on the ground practically is helping leaders find a way to simulate bringing that aspirational aspect into their business every day. So how do you simulate shock and awe without having to put your people through the pains of it? Because often it does, it can be quite impactful and disruptive, like you say, and quite painful. I mean, nobody had fun during COVID. Well, maybe the pharmaceutical companies, but most of us didn't have fun during COVID. And so there's a necessity, but there's a bit of a shock to a new reality. And so if you can find a way to simulate the symptoms or the impact, if you can create the impact on the people without having to go through the trauma, that's really what you want to try to do to kind of get it out into the open. And so that's why aspirations are so important. If you're looking at incremental change, if you're looking at keeping the machinery going, because that's what humans are really good at. We're awesome at making machines to do things. Systems come from a necessity to learn a process, right? And that's how we reduce, that's how we multiply. I mean, so you have to find a way to simulate an aspiration inside of your organization. And there's no better way of doing that than pushing people, including yourself first, and then your people throughout the organization, into believing that there's somewhere else they need to go that's just beyond the current reach. And if you know more than 30 or 40% on how to get there today, I would say it's not aspirational enough. So you need something that's really going to stretch them. I'll give you a great example. It sounds a little strange. I was working with an international media organization, let's say, and talking with the executive, and they were looking to double their revenue in a year. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Their annual base revenue was around 430 million a year, USD. Yeah. Well, when he told me, I just went, it's not aspirational enough. Almost by the time he said, well, we're looking to double revenue, it's not going to do it. The word double is not aspirational. I don't care if your revenue is $1 billion a year or $2 a year. Doubling doesn't mean anything for people. What does that mean? And why only 800? Why are you stopping at 800,000? Well, that would be, well, we think within the realms of what we can. Not aspirational. You're asking me to get better what I've already mastered. There's no reason to stretch to expand my capacity for error. How about $1 billion in a year? And he wins. I kid you not. You just asked right in front of me. What would it take? Is it possible? I'm not saying improbable. It can be improbable, but not impossible, right? As you stand today, is it possible? I'm not sure. Good. It's good you're not sure. Let's change the question. Is it completely impossible? And if the answer is yes, then you should be fired. You shouldn't be the CEO of an international media organization. So it puts oneself in a position where you have to face the reality. Is it possible, even if we have to stretch beyond where we think we need to go? Yeah, it's possible. Now we can talk about what's required to get there. And if you can put that in front of your people and share it with them in a believable way and insert yourself in the solution, not like, son, let's mow the lawn, which really means get the lawnmower out and go do your chore. I don't see dad pushing the lawnmower. No, as a leader, this is where I believe, and I'm setting our sights on as an organization to get to, and not in 2 years' time. I want to get there in 9 months. I want to get there in 6 months. You should hear a collective gasp. Heads should be turning. Already, that's a form of disruption. And here's what I'm going to do to make that happen. Here's my contribution to achieve that aspiration as an organization. We need to push our leaders to lead. There's only one universal attribute that every leader on the planet shares. Followers. I don't care what your title is. Do people follow you or not? They follow you. Where are they following you to? To that dark, dangerous place that I really can't figure out how we're going to do it. Excellent. Now we can sit down and powwow and talk through it. We can see the resources we need. Who do we need that we don't have? And the leader says, this is what I'm doing, and I'm making you a commitment. This is my role in making this happen. That also gives the leader a right to turn to his people, his best people, and say, now what promises are you going to make? And what do you need me as your leader to tool you up with to give you the best shot at achieving it? Well, that last 5 minutes, how many organizations does that happen in a regular basis? So that's kind of my honest answer. And after doing this for 30 years, I think it is as simple and as not easy as that. I think that is really the solution. They have to find a way to simulate it and to insert themselves in the solution, and then earn the right to turn to their people and say, I know it's going to be tough. I know you don't think we can do it. As we stand today, we probably can't, but we're not going to be tomorrow who we are today, because we're going to change. We're going to reshape, continually reshape to achieve that big, barely possible thing that I know we need to achieve to remain competitive, or actually to win in our space. And so that's what needs to happen. Organizations need to find a way to aspire themselves into a place where creativity becomes the only go-to to start looking for the solution you need.
Okay.
All right.
Pick you up on a few points there. Number one, you said you've been doing this for 30 years. So what, you started when you were 40? With the tire of the boy. Look, me and Rocket are very close friends, and we have this very much this love-hate relationship that we love to pretend we hate each other when actually we don't. There's a deep, caring relationship there. Rocket is as young as they come. No, so I don't actually know how old you are, but I don't want to know because it doesn't matter. So the thing that I think about there, well, there's a couple. The first one is, to your point, leaders don't do that. They just don't. Out of the box, CEOs are there to enact and enable a 3-year, 5-year strategy, and then either they move to a different large organization, or they then. No, that's kind of it. Like, if you're there anything beyond then you're probably going a bit stale. Even though the 5-year strategy is stale in itself, so there's a little bit of an argument there. But let's flip it on its side, because I agree with everything you've just said. As a leader, like, you should be doing that, because the whole reason transformation, I'm going to use inverted commas again, but the whole reason transformation programs don't work is because we have bought ourselves into a system where we don't want to be disrupted. We don't want it to be transformed. We don't want to change. The whole framework of employment and how that relationship has been set up from industrialization is like, you give me input or output, and I give you input, money, you give me output, productivity, whatever it is. So that's the dynamic here. And that output you give me is based on your qualifications, your skills, and your experience. And I don't want you to shift that, because if I shift that, that's like removing a cog in a machine. So we create machines that we can't change very easily. But if a leader gets on stage and says everything you've just said and kind of, cool, we're going to transform into this new place, one of two things is going to happen, right? People will go, yes, I'm up for the challenge. Let's do this. Let's attack the day. Hurrah! And we all ride into battle on our unicorns. Or there's the second one where it's like, but I like my job. It's safe. I'm comfortable. I know what I'm doing. And all of a sudden now you're telling me I need to do things differently. I don't want to do things differently. We're going to reshape. Does that mean redundancies? Are we going to restructure our company? Am I going to be out of a job? Am I going to be able to feed my friends and you shouldn't be feeding your friends. The friends should be feeding yourself. Am I not going to be able to see my friends? Am I not going to be able to feed my family? So there's two ways that could go. How do you avoid the second one?
Well, let's talk about that in a different tack for 1 second. Isn't that exactly the same overreaction to the advent of AI? The second one?
Well, yes.
My job. Well, what's going to happen with this? What's going to, it's like we finally figured out that we didn't have to use a piece of wood to furrow holes in the ground to plant seeds when somebody invented the hoe, right? And then somebody came along and said, I bet you I could probably put 6 of those behind a couple of horses if I can train the horses. And then the people with the little stick of wood are like, what am I going to do? How am I going to feed my family? He has a hoe and the other guy has horses, and then they have the tractor, and the people with the horse and the hose said, what am I going to do with my horses and hose? He has a tractor. It's the same thing. We keep replicating this over and over and over again. There's always going to be casualties in change. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes people are really good, and you can't really point at leadership. It's easy to point at leadership to say that and I don't mean senior leaders only, just anybody that has followers that they're accountable for. It's very easy to pass the buck off, I think. And at the end of the day, there's always going to be people that shouldn't be around for what's next. We say leadership is situational. I think doing what I'm doing as my job today is also situational. The day having a comfy job from the time you graduate from a university until you retire, those days have been over for decades. It's not a new phenomenon.
Well, they've been over for decades for you and probably for me, but for a huge swathe of the population of the globe, probably isn't, because there are still many organizations that perpetuate that framework. Like the big 4 consultancies, really great example, right? Graduate from university, get in there, become partner, retire, make your son or daughter or child, then feed the machine again. Like, the amount of consultants who become partners who then get their children to do the same thing is nuts. So the machine feeds itself with the same garbage every time. Not to call them graduates garbage, but like the same garbage process and system. It just perpetuates itself. So in that situation, you have to break it. And I think large consultancies are breaking at the moment. You can start seeing the cracks in the what I love to call the greatest pyramid schemes on planet Earth, those cracks are starting to form, right? And everything you've said helps destroy the mechanic. So I'm not saying consultancies or large consultancy firms, professional services firms, are inherently bad, but some of them, they're going to have to shift their operating model to suit everything that you've just said, because if you don't, you will die. And this is where, I think it's PwC or is it EY are going through this chopping up process. It's like we've amorphosized into this one big blob of a professional services firm, because we thought that was the best thing to do. Make just one really big machine rather than lots of little agile machines. And now we've got this one big immovable machine, and we need to separate it back out again. So it kind of makes sense. But there's that element that you've got to rewire the relationship between employee and employer in that regard. Is that, and I'm not saying,
yeah, for sure.
But if you do that at the outset, clearly, and you because the reason why I kind of hypothesize that second situation is that if we'd all entered into this contract of employment, and then the lead, and we worked there for 2 or 3 years, then the leader gets on stage and starts saying this stuff, boom, everything blows up, right? But actually, if I join that organization knowing that, this is what we do, this is how we do, which is why startups, right? Startups live in that world. They live in that space where we're kind of moving all around the place and doing all these different things. And we're trying to create that room for expansion and within ourselves, but within the stuff that the organization does. So, but then they grow up, right? Those startups grow up and say, well, we should professionalize and we should put all these systems and processes in place, and they adopt the systems and processes of large companies. So, but a startup and scale up doesn't have a HR L&D team, doesn't have all of these, elements of a large organization to support the breathing of it. But that's the only template we have to go towards. So is it no surprise that everyone copies it? Because that's how every big company operates.
I kind of call it the survival thrival paradox, because you say startups. Let's for a moment not be so generic. The successful startups, which are 1 out of 10,000 or something, are only able to do it because they are so acutely aware, presently, constantly, of their need to survive to the next day. What does it take to survive? We are built to head toward or to achieve thrivalry, let's call it, right? That everything's about how do we get to a place of thriving? That's a good question. It's never the same path. If it is, you're just replicating something that's already been done, hence no need to tap into your creativity. You've already done it. What you need to do, I like the rewired piece. I think the real goal here is to find a mechanism or a platform to rewire yourselves, to continually rewire yourselves, to continually that. So you're creating a culture that not only is rewiring okay, it's essential for us to continue to move on and advance so that we can continually find a place of thriving, take a break, enjoy the view, get some fresh air, have a nice meal, warm huggy kisses. And then we have to figure out where to next, because the goal should be by the time your competition even have a hint of where you're at, when they arrive to where they think you're at, all they're going to find is a smoldering campfire, because you've already moved everybody on to what's next. There is this need to continually adapt to survive. And I think the best leaders of any level, it doesn't matter. Like I said, even leading another person, helping another person, a mentor. I wouldn't say managers unless they're leading, but leaders of any level, they have to find a way to continually tap into that survival instinct. And a little bit of fear is not a bad thing. I mean, in themselves, like, how am I going to outdo myself tomorrow? How can I get better at this tomorrow? How can I get there faster faster, stronger, higher. What can we do different tomorrow? I don't want to just lean on what we did yesterday. And so that, again, going back to that need to continually expand that capacity for air, because if you're going somewhere you've never been to before, how do you know how to get there? You've never been there. It's like when Kennedy said, I wasn't alive when Kennedy made the speech about going to the moon. I was born a few years after that. I was definitely born in the 60s, if I can remember, because I'm so old. But anyway, most people can't quote that right, and it's really important. It's really important. What he said was, I'm paraphrasing, but I'm quoting better than most people do. We are going to send a man to the moon and bring him home by the end of the decade. Getting a man to the moon wasn't overly aspirational. We already had, there was already a space program. We had satellites. I mean, we could see the moon closer than we ever had before with somebody in it. But
there was a massive catapult that was available. We could have done that. That's.
But what really the aspirational part was, and bring him home by the end of the decade? Are you kidding? How can we do that? We've never been there. How do you know how to come back from somewhere you've never been to before? That's mad sick if you think about it. Do it by a decade. Now, looking retrospectively, I don't think that was the goal. I don't think anybody who studied it knew that was the goal. Whether we did it or not is a whole different point. But let's just pretend, or let's say, yeah, we did it. Within less than 27 years from the moment that first stepped foot on the moon, the first foot stepped onto the moon, communism as a global philosophy and way of governing people began to crumble. Less than 27 years later, the race for people to look up. America understood something, whether we're going to win this war, how many nukes can you drop on each other? But if we get humanity to look up, to cast their gaze higher and imagine and dream and say, we did that. Look what we did, look what we can do. And then the back of that story is, you see how great capitalism is? Look what capitalism enables you to do. So the race to the moon was really about showing whose philosophy was better, but it necessitated thinking about things you've never had to think about before. Constantly working on that program, you're faced with questions every day that, in fact, you're faced with not even knowing what questions to ask today because you've never had to go through it before. So leaders that understand how to inspire their people and captivate their attention, and I can't storybook this enough, I can't be dramatic enough to tell you how significant it is, especially today with all the uncertainty that's in the world. I want a leader that not only inspires me, but cares enough to be very clear and articulate out where we're going, why we're going there, what it's going to take to get there, and what it's going to be like when we arrive. And this is the role that I'm playing. And this is what I'm going to do. What are you going to do? And what do you need to achieve it? Man, you are really unlocking your people to dig deeper than they ever thought they could. There's no games. There's no tricks past that. That's what's required. And if it's not, because today it's agentive AI. That's the new thing, right? Agentive AI is what's next. I heard a talk the other day with Mark Zuckerberg and the CEO for Microsoft, and Mark was asking him, how much of AI is basically, responsible for your current code base across the organization? In the end, he said about 20 to 30%. Okay, that's a lot of all Microsoft services were created, launched, and driven by AI. Okay, that's pretty impressive. Well, Google are next, Apple are next, all the big companies are next. That will all trickle down. Yee-hee, bravo. Now we're all agentifying our way with AI onto this new terrain. We're all there together, clustered, like we were here, fighting in the red ocean. Yeah, a bunch of ships fighting each other for clients before the advent of AI. It's the same thing. So I'm saying, people are so bent out of shape. I'm not worried because I know how to access my creativity. I know how to keep my edge by continually finding a way to make myself aspire that unlocks that avenue for me to get that. And by the way, I'm not talking about creative. talking about creativity, the adverb and the adjective are really important, because when you talk to when I talk to a bunch of people and leaders, well, I'm not the creative type, right? Well, what does that mean, the creative type? Because they're thinking, pianist, composer, artist, poet. They're thinking of output. Creativity is about input. You share, that is creativity, access to creativity is already been democratized because you're breathing air. You have the same right of access to know where yours comes from to that other person that you look at and think is so much more creative because they paint or sing or dance. That may not be your thing. Maybe just getting home 10 minutes later, maybe getting home 10 minutes earlier and finding a new route to get there was your creative outfit for today. And because of that, you saved your kid's leg or your dog or something happened. You were forced to get there earlier and you found a way to do it. So instead of focusing on the creative output, which is, I think, a big danger when we talk about these things, about accessing creativity, I don't think that's the right question. I think the question is, how do we enable and liberate people to discover their own track to their own creativity, that place of what if? I call creativity the bridge between what if and why not. And I think organizationally speaking, it comes from leadership. They have to, everything does, of course. That's where the changes are ratified and made. But I think, again, liberating your people to access it, because you never know where the next answer is going to come. The yellow sticky pads that we use? 3M had a glue that only stuck paper to paper. What a shitty glue that is, And it was an admin person that said, oh, I got a use for that. You mean it sticks paper to paper and it doesn't ruin the thing you're sticking it on? Like to double-sided tape? Oh, I can use those all day. That's the true story behind 3M's sticky notes. They invented a glue that only stuck paper to paper. What a bad invention that was. And it took somebody else in the organization who had a need to figure out, how do I not waste a folder after using it once? Or how can I use this again and again? Because we're constantly changing. How can I use that? So that's what we're talking about.
So there's an element of creativity there's two different ways. So there was someone made something, and therefore the creativity was finding the application for that something based on the user need. But it all comes down to user needs, right? Because then the other way is like, oh, I find there are all these user needs and I invent something to do that. That's what invention is, right? Like, I've got this problem, I'll invent something to fix it. Oh, I've created something, but it doesn't necessarily fix a problem I know, and then it fixes it. So I think I'm going to put a pin in that conversation, because that's a whole live stream in itself and exploring that. So remember, future Toby, to talk to Rocket about that on a live stream. We'll get that in the diary. But then the other thing is, and we'll close with this because we are rapidly running out of time. This has gone very quickly. We'll do a 2-hour live stream next time. Is that if I was a caveman, because this is where you thought it was going, right? I got to wake up in the morning. I got to feed my family in the cave. Oh, little baby 1, 2, and wife. And I got to go out and run after my food and capture it. Now, you know me, I'm no runner. You look at me, you kind of go, that guy ain't a runner. He ain't chasing any animal. So I got to find a way to somehow get an animal, kill it, and cook it. Not necessarily cook it, and just give it to some other people. So there comes like a desperation, a need for me to think about how I'm going to approach this task in the best possible way. Otherwise, me and my family will die. So you flip that into the world of start your own business. Don't have a job, go start your own business. Okay, you've just got rid of all of the safety net of how you usually operate, and it is scary. You look down over the cliff edge and kind of go, am I going to fall down there, or am I going to figure a way to stay up? And so that journey is incredibly petrifying, and one I reflect on that it isn't for everybody. Like, the way our society is built is like going through that process that myself and Emily have gone through over the past 2 years isn't for everybody. I can completely understand now why everybody doesn't go, oh, I'll start a business today. Some people will and some people won't. However, there has to be that these are two very specific ends of a spectrum. Go out and start your own business, or go get a job. And somewhere is the middle ground where you can probably create quite an effective society in the world of work, because one is so damn petrifying that everyone's going to do it. One's is too comfortable that it's ineffective. So we need to figure out how we get people into this middle ground. Again, for another live stream, because we're out of time and we could talk, you and I, for days and hours. And the great thing is we will have an opportunity to speak for at least hours, because we will be in Wisconsin, we'll be in Green Bay at Disrupt on June 11th. If you want to see me and Rocket, we're going to be on stage with some other fantastic, awesome people. Scan the QR code, take a look at what we got to offer, because it's incredible, and you will be able to do it seeing Lambeau Field. I completely forgot there was something I wanted to do on this live stream. What are your closing thoughts, Rocket, while I prepare the thing that I wanted to prepare?
Oh, what are my closing thoughts? Just to really encourage people to allow themselves to feel the fear of not knowing what's next, the fear of not knowing they're going to figure it out in time, and to trust at the same time that they're going to be okay and they'll figure it out. I want to inspire people that that is a very natural, healthy, I would say optimum way to start to access your own creativity flow. And it's not a message we hear a lot these days, but I think it's important. Oh boy, I was mid-sentence.
Keep talking. You didn't see that.
I think it's I just want to encourage people that, you know, it's your birthright to access your creativity. And if you're looking to thrive and to expand your capacity for what if and for what's next, that you can definitely get there if you just allow yourself to embrace the fear and the hope at the same time that you can do it. That's how you'll be able to unlock it.
And more words of wisdom and similar words of wisdom will be at Disrupt Green Bay. And somehow we got to keep Rocket's time and deliver a 5-minute talk, which I think is probably one of humanity's greatest challenges, is to try and get Rocket to say something within 5 minutes. But it will be great. And I trust him. So, Rocket, I just want to close. You look like you're about to say something. You're not going to say something. I just want to close with one of the greatest musical moments ever created on YouTube. We're going to spin up this screen share right here. I need to see your reaction as we go, but let's just watch this 1 minute together.
Hits from 51, but it doesn't count. He's going to have to do it again.
He sure is, and he sure nailed that one. It was a perfect snap.
3 seconds on the clock. Are you kidding me? No.
This to send the Packers into the NFC Championship game. It is good! The Packers are moving on! Aaron Rodgers has done it again! And Mason Crosby,
wow,
a hero for Green Bay.
Light yellow as well. Oh, let's just watch it one more time. Well, I think that's one of the most beautiful videos on YouTube that you could ever wish to see, right? Oh, doesn't that just get you going? Does that not make you want to approach the rest of your day with vim, vigor, and energy and excitement?
Breaks my heart.
For those listening in the podcast, you're going to have to open up the video on Spotify to see that. But essentially, that's Mason Crosby kicking a field goal with 3 seconds to go on the clock in the playoffs against Rockets.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It's Toby's Packers kicking a field goal against Rockets Cowboys. That's what that was. Thanks a lot. It didn't hurt at all.
Well, let's see if we can get you to do a Lambo leap on the day of Green Bay. That'll be something to behold. And I get that on video. I will treasure that for the rest of my life. Rocket, my friend, has been an absolute delight. I will be back here next week. I'm going to start streaming at a different time next week, I think. Also, I'm at a conference, so I'll be going around the conference and trying to see who, just random people. I don't know who I'll have on my live stream. I'm going to rove with a microphone and see who I pick up. So tune in for that, probably about midday UK time. I'll get it all set up on the old Linkity Doodle. And I will see you then. But for now, Rocket, goodbye.
Thanks a lot. See everybody later. Thanks, Toby.